Hi everybody, I'm Karen and I want to welcome you to our webinar on BIM. I hope you are all well this Friday morning and ready for an exciting webinar. This is a premiere for the Nordic countries in Wavin. It's a joint webinar on BIM and we are very excited to be doing this with you guys. We have people joining us from all over Scandinavia today. So we have people in Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Greenland, and Iceland. And welcome to all of you from all over. I'm just going to share some practical information before Nargis takes the stage. This webinar will be recorded, so you can have a replay link when the webinar is over, so you can always go back and watch it again. You are more than welcome to ask any questions you have in the chat. And then at the end of the webinar, Nargis is going to answer all your questions, or the ones we have time for. Yes. Let's move on. Today's presenter is Nargis Sali. She's our Nordic digital manager and has been working with digital transformation since 2010. Since 2018, she's been a BIM engineer with Wavin, and she has experience as a mechanical engineer from oil and offshore and below ground civil and infrastructure, also in BIM. And on top of that, she's our BIM expert. I hope you're all sitting comfortably and have a cup of coffee and you're ready to learn about BIM. And now, Nargis will begin.
Hi again. Thank you, Karen, for this nice introduction. Well, expert and expert, but we're all learning in this journey. Today, I'll try to describe how we in Wavin have been working with BIM and how this whole digital journey could be taken with a manufacturer. So first, we'll start with BIM and recycling economy. Challenges in the market will be looked at. BIM and the same definition of BIM, so we all can be on the same level, and how this could be used regarding to recycling economy. First of all, I would like to start with saying most of the projects that are being used in BIM today, or most of the projects that are being modeled today, are being modeled with generic objects. That means they are generic and not specified. They do not tell you any data, unfortunately. This results, unfortunately, that we do have some projects that are missing information or fragmented information that may be entered into the project manager on an email or a USB stick or by PDFs. Now, where is the mechanical red data then? It's definitely not in the model, not yet. Unfortunately, 30% of materials that should be used in different projects, such as civil and infrastructure, are not being used. And unfortunately, they end up being wasted. Now, why is it so? So today we will go through those three journeys and try to make them more clearer on how to benefit by using a manufacturer information or plugins. But before we go there, we need to start with why BIM and what is BIM? Is it only building information modeling, Or is it a little bit more? Is it, for example, maybe management as well? Can you use tools to be able to manage the whole procedure from A to Z during the whole project? Is BIM only for civils and only for buildings and houses, or could it be something that could be used in infrastructure? In front of you guys, you will see 4 different graphs numbered by 1, 2, 3, and 4, where 1 is the ability to have an impact and how this impact can change the performance of the project, where 2 represents the cost of the design and the cost of the changes in the project, where 3 is the drafting workflow, the real 2D design that we're used to, and how to have those on paper or in a model, but in when it comes to the workflow. And number 4 represent the BIM workflow, basically the management workflow. So if we look at in the primary design, in the beginning phase of a project, again, if it's in civil or if it's in manufacture or if it's in infrastructure, it doesn't really matter. Both of them, they need a primary design, a pre-project, as we call it. The costs and the changes are low. The cost of the changes and the design are low, and the impact is high. And as you guys can see, the further we go into an actually deliverance of a project, the possibility to change and the impact availability on the project reduces. But unfortunately, the cost of the design will increase. So at one point in the project, you do need to design or you do need to change the design, but it's too expensive. And the point with BIM, graph number 4, is that how can you gather the design and being able to actually change in a much earlier phases, so the cost will not be that much. That's the whole point with building, with BIM. So hopefully it will be a little bit more clear in the next parameters. So we also talk about different Ds in the BIM and the different dimensions of BIM. And we are talking about sometimes, oh no, BIM is something that is new. But BIM has been existing since the 60s and the 70s, like you guys saw in the previous slide. And meaning what kind of information is available already. So you have the contracts, you have some kind of a sketch, or you have some kind of a model that is already existing. Well, that's in BIM 1D and 2D. 2D, when is the 2D workflow that you guys have worked with previously. 3D is when you add a height. So it's no longer just an X and a Y axis. Now you have the Z axis. That's the 3D model. Now, if you add another parameter called time, you'll get a 4D. Now you can control the planning, you can control the resources, you can control the fact when can this product, when can those walls, those windows, those pipes, when can they come and when can they come into the project or come into the site. So then you can control the ordering in 4D. When you have the 4D, you can add in the costs. And when you have the cost is when you actually can control the cost of the whole project. And that's called the 5D, is when you can be sure, are you within the budget or not? Can you change something in the design that will affect the budget? Maybe can you go lower on quality or higher on quality? All of this could be changed also in the beginning of the project and be having a lot of effects on the on the costs, which is 5D. 6D is, after my opinion, is one of the most important, 6D and 7D, because 6D and 7D is more about the sustainability and the fact that you need to do some maintenance on that road or on this building, and how are you do you have enough information to do the maintenance? Do you have enough knowledge to maybe prolong the life of this area if you did some extra maintenance? If you had a pump and you knew, if I did a cleanup or I did some kind of work or some kind of cleaning in this pump every 5 years, this would make the life of the pump 5 years extra. Now that's really maximizing the benefits of BIM and the information that could be in the model as well, or the data that is next to the model. And then you have the 8D, the link construction on 9D. And then towards the end, you'll enter something called 10D. And most likely in the market, they call it 8D because they do not include the first 2 Ds in this circle. 8D or 10D is representing the prefabrication. So all of us every day are pressured on time and we are pressured on costs. And how can you actually control this a little bit better? Is by having industrial prefabrication. If you know you have 4 buildings or 4 projects, or if you know you have 5 roads that are exactly the same, well, maybe you should have prefabricated. But again, you need this information in the beginning of the project to be able to do that. Otherwise, it will be harder. A little bit about the programs that we are using today. So we're using different programs, and most likely, if you are a designer, you'll be sitting on working on either AutoCAD or Trimble or different programs. It's very important to remember that those programs are something called extrude programs. Basically, a line can be made to a pipe or a line can be made to a wall. So it doesn't have that much information in the beginning, meaning the program itself might look like, oh, it has some architecture features, it has some structural features, but in reality, this information is something that you need to insert into the object, either yourself or you use objects by the manufacturer. Now, if you are working on Autodesk or either AutoCAD or on Civil 3D, you'll generate either a DVG or a DXF. If you're working on a Revit, you'll generate a RVT file. And the way all of those different programs are linked to each other is by having an IFC, the International Open BIM format, that can actually show you and give you a presentation of the model and how and what data is in there. Does the building, does the walls collide with the windows or not, etc. All of those information could be controlled in an IFC model. But the value of the IFC will increase with the data. Otherwise, it's just a geometry and it's lacking some data. This will take us further to something called level of development, or level of information, or level of it's called model maturity index. So I think the most confusing thing is in the BIM in general that you have 3 different names that represent one thing only. And in this case is actually just the information. How much information do you have inside your objects? And it's not like all architects need to start from a detailed design drawing, which this most naturally wouldn't happen. But what's going to happen is if an architect, they only need a LOD 100, which is just a description. This is where the area should be. We open up, this is the gap area for this and different products. But the further you go in down to the project, or when it's the real delivery of the project, that's when you need to higher up your level of information. Meaning you cannot be in engineering and designing the real project in details and still stay in LOD 100. It doesn't work like that, because LOD 100, it will not give you the right information. Then you need to move from LOD 100 over to at least LOD 350. Then and only then will you be possible to have what we talked about earlier, a 4D or a 5D. And then it will be giving the benefits for a 6D, which is maintenance. But you need to understand that when you're a designer, you cannot work on, I know that there are rules and regulations that say you're not allowed to choose a manufacturer, but you could actually choose a manufacturer based on manufacturing standards, which is standards. We are all manufacturers based and creating our products based on some kind of standards. And that's the only level you could actually benefit and be able to have the 4D and 5D. So we're talking about as built. As built will never be possible if you're still in a LOD 100 or level of information 100. As built, then you'll need definitely to move up further here. So like we talked about earlier, BIM has been around for generations. It's nothing new. But here on the 20th century, you had used probably most likely a LOD 100, where even you had to move from pressing on a mouse to pressing on a keyboard in able to put in and plug in some information. But we're not there today. Today you could have a Zaha Hadid design that has so much information and knowledge without it being too heavy or without it being wrong. A little bit about the economy and how does BIM actually also affect recyclable economy. So as you guys can see, there is this upside down triangle that talks about reducing materials, waste prevention, reusing the material, recycling the material, energy recycling, and waste. And basically from the building alliances in Norway, which is a third part government regulations are saying the higher up you move in that triangle, the better it is for the economy of the project and future projects. So if you could actually reduce your material usage, that's the whole point. Because then you're really coming up to, you're only using what you need. You don't need to, you follow some kind of description. This is what I need to be able to do this project. I don't need anything more. Then all the return, all the waste, everything will be minimalized. And how do we get here? Because this must be the ideal place to be for everyone. If you're an owner, building owner, if you're an engineer, if you're an architect, this area should be where we all want to be. And all of us in the different positions in this sector have a different responsibility to be able to get there. So I'm not going to go through all those points, but I've tried to describe it in a way where the different responsibility and who this lies on by the colors. So the green one is the owners, the yellow is the contractors, where the manufacturer is the red, architect blue, recycling companies, and so on. And as you guys can see, the green, the owners are standing most responsible for a lot of those bullets. And this makes sense because it's the owners who are going to be sitting with the model or with the building for at least 70, 90, 100 years in the future. But who is supplying with this information or with this product are the contractors or the manufacturers, which is a list that comes towards the end. So I've tried to show you guys a little bit about how we as a manufacturer can work with the contractors. So the list where it's yellow and with some red writings, that's how the contractor and the manufacturer could work together, where you need BIM, you need tailored BIM solutions to be able to reduce the material usage. You need prefab, you need industrialized manufacturing to be able, again, to reduce the costs that affect the project. You need some kind of agreement on return agreement. And I'm happy that we have some wholesalers with us today. So maybe we can have some kind of agreement in the future. We all know, and you guys know, we're using a lot of resources to actually plot in and put in information. Oh, we have returned this amount of pipes, or we have returned those amount of manholes. What are we going to do with that? And suddenly you need a lot of humans to actually be able to return the orders that were too much. But we could work together to make that list less. One point here, which is 100% only on the manufacturers. So this is one thing that designers who are with us today, or owners that are with us today, could control a little bit more, is how to choose a manufacturer that actually provides you with all the data that you need digitally. So you could export, import, direct. You could read it in a mechanical way. You don't need another human being to go in, open up a PDF, look at the PDF, read from it, and then extract the information. Then again, that's a waste of time. What we need is enough data for you so you could order based on that, for example. But then we need to know what kind of data you need. Yeah. So I hope this was a little bit explaining of, so we could help you with, for example, removable solutions, use product without any problems with the health, and also not least the environment conditions, that it's not too much noise, or the water does run in the pipe correctly, etc. All of this is something that we could help the contractor with. But again, you need to talk to us about it. So a little bit about Wavin and in the next chapter, and how our design could be done easily. So what we have available today across the 4 countries is we have Cytec Plus available, we have AS Plus available, we have Wafix, which is very familiar in Norway. We have Pexrør or Tigris in Denmark, which is very also known well. We have the Cubic Plus, or the infiltration cassettes, and we have the new PPR, or ecoplastic, what we call it. We also have available on MagicCAD in Finland. We have the tanks, the oil separated tanks as well. So I know that you guys have some of you guys have probably already gone in on MagicCAD and downloaded some of our availabilities there. So this is how they would look like in in the project or in the project that you guys would download, it will be represented with a OD and with a DN, depending on how you guys will be designing, either based on inner diameter or based on outer diameter, and depending on the, yeah. So you have Wavix Plus, AS, and Cytec. And there you go with the Ecoplastic PPR and the HP2O. So what's going to happen is we will be having probably a future webinar on what you guys would like to know about, or have a real go through step by step on how to use our packages in a real project. So here you have an example of a Wavin chamber in AutoCAD with one of the libraries in Norway, which is värde. And again, it's possible to design 3D already from the library. And in NovaPoint, if you guys use that kind of library, no problem as well. You could find our products there as well. And you can use them when it comes to Civil 3D. You can use them by laying. Also, you can use Dynamo in Civil 3D, where you can also place, for example, if you have 10 kilometers and you know that every 50 or every 70 meters, depending on the regulation of the country, if you know that you need a manhole in each and every one of them. So by using Dynamo, which is a part of Civil 3D now, it just entered this year, you can place a manhole every 70 meters, for example, and then it will be happening like this. So you don't need to actually go in and manually put this in every time. There's also, if it's of any interest for you guys, we could absolutely have a webinar about this and talk a little bit about that and the possibilities that we could have together, or the possibilities that you guys can have by using a library combined with Dynamo. So all of our data is scripted and all of our information is scripted in the packages. So the data that you need will be either inside the package or linked on top of it. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit a video. welded pipes in sewer, you always have some kind of fittings that needs to go in there. So like you guys have seen in this example, using the Wavin packages will help you design much faster. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. So again, this is the example of you cannot design a 52-degree bend because it doesn't exist. That's how simple it is. It does not exist. We have a standard of all the manufacturers have a standard of what you can order, and it needs to be either 45, 30, 60, etc. All this list of different fittings that we have. Also, for example, here where 100% like a 90-degree is not always possible when it comes to a reducer. You still need to have a reducer that gives you the right possibilities. Going from 110 or a 200 to a 90 is not possible just with a reducer like that. This reducer does not exist. You need all those fittings in order for you to make it possible going from a 200 to a 90. And then maybe as a designer, you can think, you know what, maybe I shouldn't go for 90. I'm seeing here that I will be having to spend 3 parts extra or too much. So you could go straight to 110 or a 75 if you could go down. So it's like having the knowledge of what's really available, like having a catalog that is there while you are designing instead of looking at a catalog later. So those are the problem solvers that we have. What is the difference between the Wavin packages and a generic package? I'm just going to run quickly through that. When it's a generic pipe solution, you can design with what you want. So in this case, this bend right here, angle 75, no one can deliver that, unfortunately. LOD 100, meaning that there's absolutely no information in the pipes that you are designing, and there's no way you can trace it back when you are in an IFC model. While when you design with the manufacturing packages, especially Wavin, we have some kind of smart assistants that are only allowing you to actually be able to design what's available, like mentioned earlier. So as maybe it's not so clear to see it here, but I'm trying to make a 60-degree bend down there. So then it's allowing you and saying, yeah, it's fine. And all those bends are something that you could actually in real life find, meaning that it's LOD 400, which is one step closer to to 5D and the costs. I'm just gonna skip those two. So we have also made this called Wavin ribbon, which will be available for you if you just send me an email or if you just contact me, and it's absolutely something that we could make available for you as a designer, where you can choose something called vendor neutral. So you can strip the knowledge of the pipe, leaving the data there, but you do not need to use the manufacturer name. Which is still, so it will be traceable in the detailed project, in the detailed project when they need to use this information of actually who is the manufacturer, then you can turn it on. So it's like a turn on and turn off button. But again, you need to be in the Wavin ribbon, which is of course free. So everything that we're talking about today is free available. So I'm just going to go through the different projects that we have been working on from Norway and a few from Denmark. But in this case, I'm going to pick the projects in Norway, where here the customer needed a full overview, because in this project here, they were controlled on the amount of waste and how to actually how and what do they do with the waste on the project, on the site. So they needed to know exactly the amount of pipes and the fittings and everything. So the customer asked us if we could redesign the whole project for them. And yes, of course, we did that, again, free of charge. We designed everything for them. And as you guys can see, they have the water and they have the soil and waste, and they have the yellow represented the fat, because this was I think there was like an industrial in the middle. So it was a canteen in the middle of the building. So the building is around 14 floors. And they wanted all the information based on floors, because again, they were controlled. They couldn't order everything at one point. They were controlled on how much waste they were creating every day. Yeah, so they got a list automatically. When we finished the design, they got this list of exactly amount of meters and how many fittings they need per floor, and where is the cuttings and etc. So what they found out straight away is in this floor, maybe they needed in this floor they needed for roof water, they needed that amount, fittings. Those fittings for fat, they needed those fittings, and for soil and water, they needed those fittings. So it says etage 6, but in English it means floor 6, and the pipes. And what happened straight away is the customer and the engineers, they found out that those, well, they called buslomme in Scandinavian, or they called like stoppers, water acceleration stoppers. They were happening every 10th floor. And what they still wanted to use AS plus, but they straight away saw that this will affect the waste, and this will affect that if you need to cut in which length and all those issues or struggles that came with it. So what they asked about straight away is, could you please prefabricate this? So what we did, we made this whole area, this section, and it was very simple because it was designed already. You knew you needed 4 fittings, and you needed some kind of pipes in the middle. Fine. We designed 5 different solutions, and then the customer together with the engineer chose this solution here. So this solution was prefabricated. And what they found out straight away was they saved around 67 hours in total by having the whole bill of material, by having this area prefabricated. They saved a lot of time, and of course that means they saved costs as well, because when they were given this whole bill of material, they knew exactly what to order, and we had an agreement that if it was too much, then absolutely we would take it back without any charges. And this is BIM 5D and 6D combined, because now you're really controlling the savings. And if you have 7,000 euros on maybe on this project, it's not that much. And on this project, it's I think it was around 1,000 meter pipes or 1,500. So imagine if you have the road where it is around 10 kilometers. How much savings would it be then if you knew again exactly what you needed? So back to having solutions prefabricated. It could not be done if it was not BIM tailored. Again, another project example here, especially during those weird times that we have at the moment with the corona, as you guys know, where Wavin is a very big company that has different production sites in different places in the world, and it's not like naturally that we deliver everything from home in Norway or in Denmark. We would most likely buy it from other Wavin manufacturing areas. So in this case, it was Cytec, and Cytec is produced and manufactured in Italy at the moment. And what happened was, when Italy was supposed to be on lockdown, we all got very honestly very afraid and worried. What's going to happen to all our Cytec projects? What's going to happen? How are we going to be able to deliver those projects? No, luckily for us, our site or plant in Italy was not locked down, so which was very good. But again, we knew exactly what they needed in this project to be able to deliver everything that they needed at the right time, so the production never stopped for them, for our customers. So this is how you could really maintain a fuller production site, so the project could be delivered at the right time, and hopefully everyone at work was healthy, etc. But at least the project didn't stop because lack of material, because they already had there. This would not have been possible if you are working on a LLOD 100 or when you're not choosing the right manufacturer. Another example, I have a lot of examples, so it would be hard to go through all of them in only 45 minutes. So another example where the project manager told us that by having just the standard pipes and information from when it's on a level of information 100, he is spending around 6 hours on just explaining why is the design different from the model and reality, and why on earth doesn't this work? Because suddenly you have the sprinkles, you have the other pipes or other objects that are there and working as a hinder, or you're not being able to actually connect the solutions. While when he started using our LOD 400, no problem. It was on the millimeter, so it was easier for the installer to see and to always be at the right place, and to see where the connections is and how to connect it together. Again, 6 hours for a project manager controlling the resources. That's a lot. This is what you could be getting from engineer or from a consultant company. It doesn't matter if you are an owner or an installer, or if you're a main contractor, or if you're a subcontractor. This is the level of details that it should be on. Both the combination of geometry and the data. And here we have another solution for the infrastructure, where it's a cubic plus. This calculation is available on our web pages, again, free of charge. We created a schematic, just an example. The customer was happy with it. redesigned it for them. Savings, 0 hours spent on design. Tailored BIM again when it comes to below ground, and gave a fuller IFC model about it. And then you could easily take information takeoff from the IFC model. Another example is where we have this prefabricated. So prefabrication and designing with bends or manholes in infrastructure is not a problem, but it becomes a problem when, unfortunately, the customers, either if it's the wholesaler or if it's the end customer, if they have to order it and they need to get it the day after, because we don't have time to be able to deliver on only a short notice. So if the designer, for example, would give us this detailed design a few months before the project itself, or a few weeks before the project, then this here would be ready and not delayed. And of course, it's traceable again, and the traceable data is there. Yeah, as a summary, just a little bit about if you guys want to have tailored production, if you want to maximize your BIM project, you need to be on a much higher level of information, and you need to move towards the LOD and the level of detail on 400 in order to really maximize the benefits of BIM. Otherwise, it will not be easy. Yeah, and then we have some frequently asked questions, and then it is our packages compatible with IFC? The answer, yes, of course they are, no problem. Because IFC is something, it's an export that you do already in from a Revit or from a Civil 3D, so it's not a problem, and the information is traceable, and you only need to have what we call a material takeoff list, which is maybe property sets. Maybe most of you guys, if you work in Civil 3D, you know what I'm talking about. So you include it into the model and take it out into the IFC. No problem. Another question is, why does models different from the geometry in the IFC model and the reality? And I hope during this whole session we have managed to explain it. And explain this question, and the answer is because you are on LOD 100. It's not because you are. If you had information knowledge before in the design, it will never be a difference between the IFC model and the reality. Another question that we normally get is how does it work with MagicCAD? Which is, and how much time do I save by using your packages? Just to answer on MagicCAD, absolutely no problem. The fact that when you're using MagicCAD on top of our packages, it makes MagicCAD even smarter. It makes MagicCAD also only allow you to design what's available in the market, and it's a very nice algorithm there, so no problem. When it comes to how much time you save as an engineer, literally, it's the time you waste on explaining something to either an installer or to the owner. That's what you save. You're being straight up. You're delivering all your data at one point. So it's the whole journey, all this time that you guys you will have emailing each other forward and backward. It's that time you save as well, on top of the fact that you can design if you have a slope, and if you have the connection in the 45 degrees, everything will be generated automatically. So yeah, I can see that we have time for one more question. I got into the webinar late. Are there any packages for Civil 3D? Yes, they are available in the libraries, and we are also working on creating the same intelligence that we have in the Revit. We're trying to create the same one in Civil 3D. And we are testing it at the moment. So if you would like, I think we have your email. Definitely, if you're working with Civil 3D, we would like to test it with you. Absolutely. And to see if it's beneficial or not. So that's all I had for today. Thank you for joining us. And I will let Karen take over now.